At this point, we've covered quite a few batches of aliens that have, in some way, shape or form, changed Ben 10. But this group of aliens we're going over today really came at changing the series in an entirely unique way. Well, actually, 4 pretty unique ways of coming into the series. So as much as the Ultimate Alien aliens change Ben 10, the bit that really sets them apart from other groupings is, by and large, the way each came into the series. So today we'll be covering the Ultimate Alien roster of aliens. Firstly, going over a section of them I'll be referring to as sort of the problem children of Ultimate Alien, then the Ultimate Aliens themselves, the Andromeda 5, and wrapping up the video with an alien that was introduced in the most unique, slightly confusing and out there way of any alien transformation. Ben 10 Ultimate Alien was for the most part defined by the introduction of the ultimate forms of some of the fan favourite aliens. But before we get to those, let's talk a bit about the problem children of Ultimate Alien. The 3 transformations that came in right at the end of the series and tend to have a pretty mixed reception by the community, those being Eatle, Fast Track and Juryrigg. These 3 being the result of the studio asking the creators to add more new aliens. These aliens being designed without any particular powers in mind, since they felt that would give the people working on them more creative freedom. Though to my understanding, this same idea could have been the case for any of the other aliens come Ultimate Alien, you could reasonably come to the conclusion that this applies to Chameleon and Clockwork, as well as the one I'm saving within this video. I will say, the studio ordering more aliens seems pretty strange given how few Ultimates we got in a series called Ultimate Alien. If they were after more aliens to base toys off of, I would have gone with more Ultimate designs myself. But enough of that, let's get started with possibly the alien with the most mixed reception in Fast Track. Coming in towards the tail end of the UAF era, we've got our second speedster alien with a black and blue colour palette. His abilities boil down to super speed, but unlike Accelerate, he seems to have a harder time slowing down when he builds up momentum. Speaking of those glaring similarities, in early development, he also had wheeled feet, but that was scrapped given how much he already resembles Accelerate. In series, his first appearance in the episode Basic Training came as a bit of a surprise. Being one of the handful of aliens unlocked off-screen, I do tend to enjoy when this happens from time to time. Really makes the series feel like things are constantly moving forwards and Ben's experimenting with new aliens all the time between missions and series events. Fast Track quite famously not making an appearance come Omniverse, with the crew never being able to come up with an idea to translate him into the series in a new and interesting way. Though we did get a really great design for him had he been included. Next up we've got Juryrigg, who I recently made a video entirely dedicated to, where I covered just about every last detail I could find, but for now we'll go over him more generally. When he was first introduced in Ultimate Alien, his initial look is so horrible I almost find it coming back around and being a bit charming in a very particular kind of way. He's a little gremlin guy whose powers more generally come down to him being able to dismantle and reassemble any kind of machinery in clunky but interesting ways. Going a bit more into it, he can similarly do this to any kind of machinery, including the living mechanical species across the franchise. He can also do it at speeds that one would assume are comparable to species like Fast Track or Accelerate. There's also some confusion on some additional powers that came from a guidebook, but they're never in series. Those including teleportation and being able to generate smoke bombs, both of which would suit him, but I'm not convinced they're really a part of what he can do, especially smoke bombs, not just spitting out smoke, but I can't really see him shooting out smoke bombs. And our final entry into our problem child category, and again, while receiving a mixed reception, he's probably the most beloved of the 3, we've got Eatle, the upchuck stand-in for the UAF era. Like Juryrigg, having 2 very distinct looks depending on which series you're looking at. I personally have a preference for the Omniverse counterpart, same with Juryrigg. In his debut episode, he's this mostly monochromatic metal beetle guy with this very interesting jaw design. His abilities come down to having that jaw being able to rip through just about anything, which aids his primary ability to eat whatever kind of material he can get a hold of and turn it into energy that he shoots through his horn. And like a lot of Ultimate Alien entries, as much as he gets tossed about, he's pretty durable. Getting into the Ultimates, I initially hesitated to include them on this list since I've covered each of their transformations individually in previous Whatever Aliens Change Ben 10, but seeing as I never really did more than touch on the Ultimates, I thought I'd talk about what makes the Ultimates unique from their regular counterparts. On the off chance you're not familiar, Ultimates are a version of an alien species that have been forcibly evolved through putting their DNA through a simulation of the worst case scenario, making whatever species better suited for combat or whatnot, being however many times more powerful than their regular series counterpart. Starting off with series mascot and my personal favourite, Ultimate Humungosaur. Like with every Ultimate form, Humungosaur got the usual colour palette swap, along with his new abilities replacing his old ones. Now no longer being able to increase his size, though he is a bit bigger than a base Humungosaur, with the new ability to transform his hands into these Gatling guns. He's also gotten so incredibly durable, but more importantly, at least to me, he's got a fantastic new look. There's something about the combination of the helmet, the club tail, and that shell that really appeal to me. Then we've got seemingly everyone else's favourite, and rightfully so, Ultimate Echo Echo, who probably goes through the most visual change of any Ultimate. No longer being a little guy, he gets the usual colour swap along with now a much larger, differently shaped body. Still very much so staying true to the feeling of Echo Echo despite changing so much. In saying that, he does trade out his ability to self-duplicate for these sonic discs that can fly about the place and shoot out sonic blasts, functionally replacing his duplicates. His fight with Ultimate Kevin being an absolute highlight across Ben 10 generally. Getting into Ultimate Spider Monkey, who goes through a change in species. Now rather than being a monkey with extra eyes and limbs, he's an enormous gorilla with spider legs on his back in a bit of an iron spider kind of way, along with that spider-like jaw. And with that new bulkier body, he's also seemingly stronger than forearms. I'm quite a fan of this one, particularly the subtle purple colour palette. He doesn't so much swap out his abilities for new ones as much as he just gets a huge amp to any ability. The first time I saw Ultimate Swampfire, I didn't realise who he was an ultimate form of. I must have caught his debut episode halfway through with him already transformed. I also wasn't so fond of him initially, but I've grown to really like him. I like the greenery of the base Swampfire now becoming wood. I'm not as fussed on the blue gooey blobs that make up his upper body, but it works. Not also different to the change with Spider Monkey, this form is now for the most part a big amp to his abilities, but unlike Spider Monkey, he gains these bombs that he can take off his body and throw about. Next up is my favourite alien and possibly the most lackluster ultimate, we've got Ultimate Big Chill, who gets a colour palette swap, some added details, and now instead of getting ice breath, he gets fire so cold it burns, functionally just making him a red, stronger Big Chill. Then continuing on our downward spiral, we've got Ultimate Wild Mutt, who gets a palette swap, a new head detail, and the ability to speak. Really not all that fond of this one. And to end this list of Ultimate Strong and the last one introduced in UAF, with Ultimate Way Big, who looks pretty similar to a regular Way Big, but much larger, with a few more details and the addition of some red and blue, making him look even more like Ultraman. He also gains the ability to shoot out cosmic beams, who I'd forgotten base Way Big didn't do. There are more Ultimates out there, but we'll have to wait until I make a video on Omniverse for those. Then we've got the Andromeda 5, who I've also somewhat recently discussed at length in their own video, so we'll do a bit of a speed round for this lot. They're some of my absolute favourite aliens and really carry a certain weight to them. Feeling as though at the time of their introduction, like they're a bit of a step up in how powerful new transformations would be, each of them having more complex abilities and being all wildly durable. Going in order, we've got Water Hazard, a much needed addition to aliens who are useful underwater, going as far as being able to produce and control water, along with having an exoskeleton that's practically adamantium. That and he's got this really great look to him, being this great looking crustacean man, and that design just gets even better come Omniverse. Moving on to Armadillo, who's one of my absolute favourite aliens. He's this absolute unit who can transform his hands into drills and create earthquakes. He's up there as one of the best big strong guys in series, and I adore his DNA donor, Andreas. Another series highlight, we've got NRG, who comes along with a containment suit, making him this bulky, durable transformation, with the added ability to open up that suit, allowing him to fly about the place using his radiation abilities to their fullest. Then there's Terraspin, who can fly about and control wind, with the bonus of having total immunity to mana for whatever reason. A bit of fun, and again like the rest of them, I prefer the look and how they're handled come Omniverse, both in terms of design and the choreography in fights. And finally Amphibian, who is a great interpretation of a jellyfish alien, being yet another electric alien and another water alien. What I like most about him and what sets him apart from the other electrical aliens for the most part, is his ability to turn into pure electricity. He can also get a gauge of other people's thoughts through the electrical signals in their brains. Getting towards the end of the video now, we've got the final three aliens. Starting with the one whose DNA donor made quite an impact on the series, Chameleon, who's never been one of my absolute favourite aliens, despite how much I like the darker purple patterns against the lighter purple skin. I am now seeing the parallels between him and Randall from Monsters Inc. His abilities coming down to being able to camouflage himself. And beyond that, like Fast Track, he never made it over to Omniverse. I imagine for a similar reason. And finally, a big hitter in series, we've got Clockwork, who like a lot of this list certainly left their mark on UAF but really shone come Omniverse. I suppose all these aliens on this list either translated to Omniverse really well or didn't appear whatsoever. Back to Clockwork though, he's quite a unique entry, probably the most overwhelmingly mechanical alien, especially in looks. I particularly like those exposed gears you can see in his chest piece. That and the black and gold work really nicely with the green of the Omnitrix. I found his UAF appearance a bit lackluster, not really coming into his own as much until Omniverse, where he really made use of his time control abilities, being able to slow down time around him, reverse time, along with shooting out these time rays. And finally, the alien who I've been teasing his ultimate alien appearance since the beginning of this video, despite how unconventional it was, we've got Shock Squatch, who despite being a UAF alien, made his one and only appearance prior to Omniverse in another series, in the Ben 10 Generator Rex crossover. I'd be curious if I'm the only one who, upon initial viewing, didn't make the connection between this version of the alien with the omniverse alien at first. I do have a bit of a fondness for this initial look, however, the colour palette and odd proportions especially, though his powers and abilities stayed the same. Being another electrical alien with the ability to electrify himself or shoot out electricity through the metal bolts coming out of his body, or generating static electricity by rubbing his hands together. That, and he had a very different look. Very different in terms of how his redesign would end up looking, and I guess due to being introduced in the crossover, very different than you expect any Ben 10 alien to look really. And that's about it. If you have any thoughts or feelings about any of the aliens or anything I've spoken about, I'd love to hear it. If you've made it this far into the video and aren't subscribed, please consider doing so. Either way, I appreciate you being here. Thanks for watching.